Hey guys, it's Miss Hall here, and today in Boost we're going to be talking about making inferences. And making inferences is something that you do always whenever you read. Authors don't tell you everything. You have to figure stuff out, and to do that you have to use your clues that the author does give you in the story and your own knowledge and your own experience to make guesses about what's happening. And we call those guesses because they're really not just guesses, you're figuring it out. We call that making inferences. All right, let's practice that. I'm going to read you a little clip from a story about Mr. Craig and then ask you to make some inferences. After the story, go ahead and pause this and write your answers on your paper, and then we'll talk about it. So Mr. Craig was at the park with his family. He was the family cook, and he stood at the grill cooking hot dogs while everybody else swam in the pool. The little boy had been standing by the tree for a few minutes before Mr. Craig really noticed him. "Do you need any help?" the boy asked. "No, I think I've got it under control," Mr. Craig chuckled. Then he noticed the boy's dirty t-shirt and ragged pants. "I might need some help eating all of these hot dogs, though," Mr. Craig said. "I think I may have cooked too many. Would you like one?" "Okay," the boy said. "I wouldn't want you to have too many." So think about that story. Why did the boy ask to help Mr. Craig? Why did Mr. Craig say that he had too many? And what does that tell us about what kind of person Mr. Craig is? Take a minute, pause this, and write your answers down, and then we'll talk about it. All right, so based on what we can infer from this story, and the fact that the boy had on a dirty t-shirt and ragged pants, we can guess that maybe this boy was hungry, and that's why he asked to help Mr. Craig, because he really wanted a hot dog. Mr. Craig probably said that he cooked too many because he wanted to be able to give the boy one, knowing that the boy was hungry. And that shows us that Mr. Craig is really a very kind man. All of that is making an inference. As you make inferences, one of the things that you do is you use clues from the story to help you figure out what it is that the author isn't telling you or what the author doesn't tell you. When you are making inferences, be sure that you're able to identify and quote the clues that you use. We're going to do a little bit of practice with that. All right, let's look at the story about Pete and Ted. After you finish the story, like before, I want you to pause and write your answers down on your note sheet, and then we'll talk a little bit about the answers here. Look for clues to how you make the inference, or how Ted makes the inference here. So Pete called Ted Tuesday afternoon and invited him to come to his house after dinner to watch a movie. It had been a long, boring day, and Ted was excited to have something to do. After dinner, he hopped on his bike and pedaled over to Pete's house. The house was dark, and when he rang the bell, there was no answer. Ted turned around, hopped back on his bike, and rode home. Now, what inference about Pete does Ted make, and what clues helped him make that inference? Take a minute, pause this, and write that on your sheet, and then we'll talk about it. So we can guess that by the fact that Ted got back on his bike and went home, that he's making the inference that nobody's home at that Ted got on his bike and went back home, that he's making the inference that nobody's home at Pete's house. Now, what clues give us that? Well, the fact that it's dark and that when he rings the bell, nobody answers. Those are our clues that help Ted make the inference that nobody's home. The rest of this video contains practice number 2 about Patty and practice number 3 about Mary. On your own, read through these short sections and answer the questions on your note sheet. We'll talk about these in class later. All right, guys, hopefully you were able to make some good inferences about Patty and Mary. Save this note sheet. We'll go over it in class later.